Hello and welcome. My name is Kimberly Grymes, and I am a self-published author, and this is From Ideas to Pages to Publishing, a podcast where I focus on quick, informative episodes for both readers and writers. Mainly, it's me giving an update on my writing projects, followed by one or two recent author experiences, all under 20 minutes or less. And I'm not holding back either regarding my author experiences. You can expect me to share the good, the bad, the wins, and those moments when I'm ready to pack my bags and head for the hills. It's all part of the growing process to become the best author I can be, and hopefully my experiences can help others. I'm excited to sprinkle in some guest interviews as well, from all kinds of people within the book-loving community. That includes book influencers, artists and designers, editors, publishers, and of course, authors. Unfortunately, I can't promise everyone who submits a response via the guest interest form will be considered for the show. Before I jump in and give you a quick writing update, I want to remind listeners that From Ideas to Pages to Publishing has a writing support group on Patreon. We meet once a month to cheer each other on as we work to reach our writing and author business goals. Podcast episodes are also released a week early to Patreon members. All right. This week, I'm going to be talking about how my writing and editing timeline has changed over the years. But first, a quick update on my writing projects. Book 3 in my YA Dark Fantasy 3 Shades trilogy, titled Shades and Blood Oaths, is off with a proofreader. I'm just going to stop there with this update for this project because reaching this point in the publishing process is one of my favorites, so I'm going to enjoy this milestone. I'll probably celebrate the win this weekend, so let's jump in and talk about the upcoming Kickstarter. Today is August 8th, which means we're 41 days away from the campaign launching. Yes, I do still have a lot of things to do. The two main things I'll be focusing on while Book 3 is with the proofreader is trying to make progress with the annotated edition of Shade of Light and working on that second short story, which is a scene from Book 1, Shade of Light, from Celine's perspective right after Adele escapes, leading up to the unfortunate event that happens later in the book. But I don't want to spoil it for you. Because this short story does have some spoilers, I am planning to include the short story in the omnibus between Book 1 and Book 2. I still have to figure out where to add the second short story, which is a prequel to Shade of Light, when Adele travels to Noviska, which is a northern country in the fantasy story world. She travels to Noviska with General Annika, and because of the events that happen in this short story is where Book 1 starts off. So we'll have to decide where to include the short story in the omnibus, something for me to ponder over the next few weeks. Okay, next, a quick update for my Prairie Land Romantasy work in progress. I've started writing chapter 4, but it's a bit slow going because I have a lot of other projects that need attention and a lot of stuff going on with my family life. School starting next week, my sister-in-law's having a baby shower, and some other family medical stuff that will take up some time in the next week or so. I do have a meeting next week with my book coach, Connolly, and I'm anxious to hear her feedback for chapters 2 and 3. With this story being a low-stakes, slow-burn romantasy, I am a bit concerned about the opening scenes and if they're not punchy or suspenseful enough. But we'll see what she says. So low stakes doesn't necessarily mean cozy. Low stakes just means that the events that happen in this story aren't world-ending or catastrophic to major events. It's more small town drama, which doesn't mean there isn't a murder or two. And last, the super secret author collab project. I'm really happy with the first 3 chapters, and I've started writing chapter 4, so I'm hoping once my kids go back to school next week, I'll be able to get more words out for this story. Okay, that's all for my writing project update. I kept it super short this week as nothing really monumental happened. I'm excited to jump into this week's author experience topic, how my writing and editing timeline has changed over the years. It's important to note that everyone's writing habits and time frames are different. What I prefer to do when drafting and editing may not fit your lifestyle or may not be your preferred route of getting your story published. But I've found over the years that sharing our experiences does provide options for other writers to consider, styles or methods that someone may not have considered otherwise. You've heard me say that plenty of times about sharing our experiences, so I thought I would share how my writing and editing timeline has changed over the years. It's important to note that it's very common for this timeline to evolve, whether the stages change themselves or whether the process for each stage changes, meaning you may use critique partners in the beginning, but you may not always use critique partners down the road, or the way you brainstorm and outline your story when you first start out may change by the time you're writing your 5th or 6th novel. Just like if a new hire moves up in the ladder at their company, improving their skills and job performance, so does a person that transitions from aspiring author to debut author to experienced author. We grow more confident in ourselves for our writing, and we fine-tune our writing process. When I first started writing my debut book, Isoldes, I had no idea what I was doing when it came to how to write a book. I just knew I wanted to write a book. I spent countless weeks learning more and more about how to write a story by reading many nonfiction books about story structure, about character development, and about reader expectation. I also watched multiple authors on YouTube and listened to 1 or 2 podcasts where authors helped other authors with writing tips and tips of the business. But it's more than just doing a ton of research when you're an aspiring author. I discovered that the key to learning more about being an indie author was through networking and through the community itself. So, the brainstorming and outline stage remains the same for me. It's a constant from then to now, though my process of how I brainstorm and outline have evolved dramatically. Mainly because over the years, I've learned more about how to fine-tune my outline using story beats and story pacing. Back then, after writing a first draft, I would swap chapters with critique partners. This was a vital part of my growth as a writer. Other people reading my words and sharing their feedback on what works and what doesn't work. Finding the right critique partners or writing circle should be a priority for any newbie author. Not only to help provide feedback, but to also have in cheering each other on with each milestone reached, and to vent when things get rough. I shifted away from my critique partners after my first book. We kind of all went our separate ways, but we still keep in touch. And instead, I formed more of a close relationship with other authors that have become my beta readers. Beta reading is subjective when it comes to how polished a manuscript should be when sending it to your beta readers. Beta readers are the ones who are going to tell you if there's any plot holes or if there's any character voices that fall flat. Me, personally, I prefer to send out a story that's basically ready to be sent to the line editor, meaning it's pretty much done. Like there shouldn't be any plot holes or character issues, or scenes that need major overhauling. But that also doesn't mean that those things aren't going to happen. My beta readers may find inconsistencies with the story timeline, characters that are behaving outside of their normal actions or not within their personality, and scenes that just suck and need to be rewritten completely. But for the most part, I try to rewrite my story or do self-edits, making it probably the 2nd or 3rd draft that's sent out to beta readers. I've used a combination of writing friends and paid beta readers. I think I've only used paid beta readers when I felt I needed that extra feedback. And there's nothing wrong with paying for beta readers. They're doing a service for authors, and it's greatly appreciated, especially if their feedback proves to be valuable and helpful in improving the story. Okay, so other than shifting away from critique partners, my writing stage of brainstorming and outlining, writing a 0 draft, doing self-edit and calling it a first draft, and then doing one more round of self-edits, and calling it a second draft, and then sending to beta readers, those steps haven't really changed too much for me. The stages are all the same. I guess it's the process that has evolved. Each stage has developed and evolved in its own way where I can write faster. I've gone from writing a book in 1 year to writing a book in 3 to 4 months, if not distracted with other projects. It usually takes about 5 to 6 months if I have other projects going on. Everything else has remained the same, sending the manuscript to the line editor and then sending it off to the proofreader. I will always use those layers of professional editing, and I highly recommend everyone else do too. Skipping the professional editing stage will only hurt you and your reviews in the end. So my writing and editing timeline has evolved, but in a way that comes with more experience. Things happen much faster and with more confidence. Your writing habits and timeline will also evolve at whatever pace works best for you. That's all for episode 19. I'll be back next week with more updates and more experiences to share. Until next time, thank you for listening to From Ideas to Pages to Publishing with me, Kimberly Grymes. For more information about me, my books, and my author shop, visit kimberlygrymes.com/links.